head of the communications unit at Regent University College of Science and Technology. And we are the organizers of this webinar on mental health and emotional wellness. So we are privileged to have Dr. Delali Fiagbe, who's the head of the psychiatry department at the University of Ghana Medical School, serving as a speaker for today's webinar. And he'll be speaking on anxiety and coping mechanisms for anxiety. So if you have any questions, please feel free to jot them down. There'll be a question and answer segment that will give you the opportunity to engage with Dr. Fiagbe. Okay. Alternatively, if you have any questions, you could drop them in there's an in-call messages feature. You can drop them at the questions there. Okay, so we're giving ourselves a few more minutes, then we commence in earnest. Thank you very much. We have Prof. Samuelati once again.
Yeah, I can
present. Oh, hi, Prof. Hi, Prof.
Yes.
Thank you so much for connecting. Would you like to share some brief remarks?
Oh my gosh, mental issues is far beyond me. So I'm a full candidate of this program. I have nothing to say but to wait for the speaker and his readiness.
Sure. Thank you so much. And thank you for connecting. Dr. Fiagbe, I think we can see your presentation now. It's showing now. Doc, if you can hear me.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear. See your presentation now. Can any of us also see the presentation, Dr. Fiagbe's presentation?
It's not in the presentation mode now. Let me try and see if I can do it.
Okay, yeah.
I cannot see.
I can see now.
Okay, so Shadrach and band leader. The ensemble raised funds to support needy children in the pediatric department who faced treatment delays due to financial constraints. Currently, Dr. Fiagbe is the president of the Psychiatric Association of Ghana, a member of the Faculty Board of Psychiatry in the Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons, and he also is the CEO of Psalmist Medical Center. That's a private clinic offering various health services, including mental health care. Dr. Fiagbe is married to Rita Fiagbe with 3 children. His dedication to medicine, music, and ministry has significantly impacted the lives of others. So, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome Dr. Delali Fiagbe. You have the floor, Doc.
Thank you, Benjamin. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir. Loud and clear from my end.
Yeah, so thanks for this opportunity to have a discussion on anxiety and strategies for coping and healing. I'm excited because when I look at the vision of the school, which is to be a college of science and technology that fits into the national agenda, existing as a function of a God-centered university dedicated to raising highly skillful, visionary, and God-fearing, ethical, and passionate leaders to function as change agents in various locations and spheres of life. These words actually resonate with me, and I think that it's probably the reason why such a topic has come up, because anxiety is one of the issues that you need to deal with if you want to reach greater heights in life. Some people have had their vision truncated or shortchanged because of anxiety. So I'm very happy that you're talking about it. And this actually falls within the purview of mental health. And we will have a very interesting discussion from today's presentation. So our presentation will basically cover what anxiety is. When it becomes a problem, we'll look at the body's response to anxiety. We'll look at the symptoms of anxiety, types of anxiety, the difference between anxiety and then anxiety disorders, and then the root cause of anxiety. We'll also be looking at the impact of the impact of anxiety on mental health. It's not a big paper to look at some of the coping strategies and some nuanced way of dealing with anxiety. So the question is, what's anxiety? So it's basically a normal human emotion characterized by worry, apprehension, and physical symptoms. And like we see, everybody needs a little bit of anxiety. And I can tell you without a shred of doubt that I have a little bit of anxiety as I'm presenting, even though I've done this over and over again, 1,001 times. Everybody does have some level of anxiety. And it's supposed to be a catalyst in order for you to be able to perform adequately. I think that God Himself designed it so that we can be able to have a successful flight or flight response in the face of danger. There are a lot of things that happen to us, in fact, to our cognition when we get into anxiety. So there are some not underestimate. But it can become a problem if it becomes maladaptive, it's difficult to control, regulate, it's excessive, it's persistent, and begins to interfere with our day-to-day lifestyle. So don't you worry if you are experiencing anxiety right now. If you even had one this morning, or there's a challenge coming up that is exciting you and leading to lots of anxiety. We just have to know how to be able to manage it. So basically, the fear you experience, the apprehension you experience, and some of the physical symptoms which we'll be delving into pretty soon are what we refer to as anxiety. So as I indicated earlier, it's a fight or flight response. The body also prepares for anxiety. It's amazing to know that God has orchestrated everything in the body to prepare to be able to respond to anxiety. So there are some hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, which are released when you're in anxiety or in a state of anxiety, which may eventually lead to an increase in your heart rate, breathing, and alertness. So I'm sure if we were to give a microphone to anybody right now to tell us about yourself, you realize that almost immediately your heart begins to race. Your thoughts is like haywire. Your level of alertness may change a little bit. It's because there are some hormones which are released in the body that allows you to prepare yourself to be able to handle, the anxiety that is approaching. The adrenaline, for example, is released. There are two areas in the body that it is released. One is in the kidney, and there's another one released from the brain. The one from the brain, there's a part of the brain we call locus coeruleus, where adrenaline is released. That allows us to respond to some of these anxiety issues. And as I indicated, it's just to prepare you and make sure you're ready to face whatever challenge it is. I have a diagram here which shows the levels of the release from pituitary gland, which is in the brain, adrenocorticotropic hormone, which is also released. Adrenal gland releases cortisol, and it goes into the blood, and then after that it's distributed to the lungs. You tend to breathe faster. It goes to the liver to convert glycogen to glucose so that you can be able to have energy to respond to a fight or flight. Your blood vessels will also increase so that there's a lot more blood available to your muscles in case you have to run, in case you have to dash quickly. You need a lot of energy at that material moment to be able to do that. And then you have some visual tuning, so your vision is tuned so that you can be able to see more accurately. Okay, so and I know those of you who have had experience with pinhole cameras know that when you look through a pinhole, you're able to see more clearly than when your eyes are wide open. So the body prepares you to be able to see properly. And the reason your heart is actually racing is because a lot more blood has to be pumped to the rest of the body so that oxygen is made available for ATP energy to be released. And then, unfortunately, digestion kind of slows down because digestion requires a lot of blood. Okay, so all the blood around your intestines and stuff will be shunted to your muscle so that you are prepared for the flight or fight response. So this is a further step of what we just discussed, trying to categorize the symptoms into physical symptoms as well as psychological, emotional symptoms. So when you're anxious, your heart will race, you breathe rapidly, you might be sweating, your muscles may be tensed, you feel fatigued, you may have headaches and upset stomach. And I mean, if the anxiety persists for a very long time, of course, it will deprive your stomach of blood, and then there are some stress ulcers that may degenerate. That may result as a consequence of you being in a state of anxiety for a prolonged period. And the emotional symptoms or the psychological symptoms include feeling worried, feeling on edge, nervous. You might be a bit irritable. May have difficulty in concentrating, and then your sleep might be impaired. And there's always this overwhelming fear of not being in control. And it is rightly placed at the last on the list because this actually comes up if you have these anxieties not controlled, regulated over a prolonged period of time. Now there are types of anxiety disorders which I like to highlight briefly. So the first one is generalized anxiety disorder. So these are people who have excessive worrying. Then that frenzy, they hear that somebody is not coming home on time, and they get into all the symptoms that we've mentioned in measures which is not in keeping with what others may experience. And then there's a social anxiety disorder. I mean, those of us who have been doing a lot of presentations kind of have this from time to time, where you have to stand in front of a crowd to deliver a speech, to explain yourself. The anxiety comes because you think that everybody is marking you. They are marking your English, marking your vocabulary, your syntax, and everything. So that's develops into some level of anxiety. I mean, if this continues for a prolonged period of time, we may consider it as a disorder. Otherwise, what you experience when you're behind the podium is normal, and it will move blood to your brain and other parts of your body, so you may be able to reason. But if you are not able to go through a presentation completely from start to finish and it's repeated, then of course there's a disorder. And then there's also a panic component where there's a sudden surge of intense anxiety that actually starts gradually, rises to a crescendo, a peak, and then afterwards gradients downwards. So we have like a U, an inverted U. So it starts gradually, moves to the top, and then begins to reduce. So that's a typical panic attack. If this does that best your ability to do basic domestic functions, then of course that might be problematic. And then we have the phobias. Some of us may move into anxiety because of some objects. Okay, there are some objects or some situations which can spark anxiety in us, and if that also continues for some period of time and we are not able to regulate it, it may degenerate into a disorder. So there are ways by which we navigate it, but I mean, a countless number of people have these fears, which they've been managing for years on end. So unless, of course, it becomes unbearable and maladaptive, whatever measures you've been using is satisfactory. You should just continue. I know people have extreme fear of rain, umbrophobia. Some have extreme fear of needles, trypnophobia. Some have fear of driving, going to long distances, amansophobia. There'll be quite a number of them. So people have fears of death, which is called thanatophobia. But as I indicated earlier, these are within normality if it doesn't impair your function. But once in a while, these anxieties come up. The last but not the least, actually in our diagnostic criteria, OCD is no longer considered as an anxiety, but you might miss an important point. That's why I decided to put it here. Previously, it used to be considered as an anxiety disorder. So OCD is basically running intrusive thoughts through your mind and having certain behaviors you can activate to undo these thoughts because they produce an enormous amount of anxiety. So, for example, you feel that your hand is dirty, you have to keep washing your hands. Some of you close your doors, you have to go back to check whether the doors are open or closed. You drive midway through your journey and you are unsure whether you left your key or you left your door open. You have to go back, and these anxieties which result because of the attention and focus that we 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 attribute to or we give to some of these thoughts and ideas. So if you're able to manage it and doesn't disrupt your daily activity, that's understandable. But of course, if it begins to disrupt your daily function, then it's a matter that needs a bit of intervention. So I have a quote here: worrying is like rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. So I'm sure some of us have had the opportunity of sitting in rocking chair and see I swings you um, to and fro, but technically you don't gain any distance. So that's how worry can affect us. So
Okay, sorry, Doc. Sorry to interrupt you. It seems your slides are they're not moving. I thought I was the only one, but another
oh
participant,
really?
yeah, the slides are not moving.
So where
I think yeah, it's moving now. What I see now is understanding anxiety. Can anybody else confirm if you can see the understanding anxiety page?
Yes,
I'm
please.
sorry.
Can see.
Yes, same here.
Yes.
Please.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Yes. So,
Sorry,
sir, proceed, please.
should have alerted me a little earlier. So I think I just have to exit. I'll exit and then manage with this one. Should be able to. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. Maybe so you can see this. Give like a minute so you can see the slides and some of the things that I was talking about. So release of hormones. I've also spoken about categorization of the symptoms into physical and psychological symptoms. So this is a pictorial representation of what I just spoke about. And then I was on the types of anxiety disorders. I spoke about the generalized anxiety disorder, which is characterized by excessive worrying, social anxiety. I was talking about panic disorder. I was talking about the phobias and obsessive compulsive disorders. Okay, so I was on this slide when my attention was drawn. So there's this slide just dichotomizes between anxiety and then anxiety disorders. So I just take a quick walk. So anxiety is a normal reaction which is due to stress and difficult times. Each of us may have experienced it one time or the other, and it's usually triggered by a stressor. On the flip side, for anxiety disorders, it can actually come out of nowhere. You may not necessarily have a trigger factor for the experiences that you may have. And for the anxiety disorders, again, it might be very intense and disproportionate to an emotional response. So the way we know is when two people sees a snake and one person is like into a frenzy and just dashing away, and the other person is able to stay put and reason out what to do. So these are like two emotional responses. So obviously the first person has say might be a disorder. The anxiety usually has a start and an end because the trigger may actually be obvious to the individual, and usually if it's like a transient phobia, the offending agent is there, so it kind of cycles with the start and finish of the anxiety. But for the disorders, these can actually go on and last for weeks and months on end. That's how we know that's a disorder. And then for the anxiety, it lessens significantly or disappears away from the stress situation. And as you can imagine, for the anxiety disorders, you don't tend to see that pattern. It just stays on and interfere with your daily activities. Um, Usually, relaxation often helps you feel better if you are just within the normal anxiety range. Um, but for some people, the regular putative relaxation does not really seem to work. You need a little touch or a little tweaking for you to be able to feel a lot better. For the anxiety, you may have it when you're in toxic situations or overbearing situations. And usually, once you move out of that state, things revert to normalcy. And for anxiety disorders, it feels impossible to control. There's always that sense of losing control and not be able to manage your emotions. And so these are the things that help us distinguish normal anxiety from the abnormal. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Okay. So I'm sure some of us might be wondering what are the possible causes of anxiety or what's the root cause of that, what exactly is happening. We know from studies that some individuals have a high prone to anxiety than the others. So it tells us there is some genetic undertone or underpinnings to anxiety disorders. And for example, I have noticed my late father actually trembling a lot when he's called to. He's able to perform, however, anyway. But I realized that it kind of happens with me. I'm eventually able to perform. So since I'm a chip of old block, it doesn't really just to underline the fact that there might be some genetic linkage, and twin studies have shown that there's a 50% chance that if one twin has it, the other has it too. And then traumatic events. We know that if you experience some traumatic events in life, you are also predisposed to having anxiety more frequently than those who have not had it. So events like abuses from home, sexual abuses. In fact, for gross mental illnesses, we've been able to establish some level of association or correlation between abuses and deeper mental illnesses like depression and the rest. So events are very key in the evolution. The next one is chronic strain, but by a lot of stress, you are also very likely to develop anxiety. And then we also know that there are some neurochemical changes in the brain which makes people experience anxiety more than others. Okay, so those who have reduced levels of serotonin, those who have reduced levels of dopamine, and then increased levels of adrenaline and cortisol imbalances are able to. Now, all these stem from the genetic makeup of those individuals. I have a quote here that says that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. So there are people who have a lot of unsavory experiences in life because of their fears. So, what is the impact on mental health and physical health? So, we know that chronic anxiety, as you can imagine, if it goes on for too long, can actually lead to depression. I put on one of the slides that anxiety actually rewires your brain, and rightly so, because the brain is just like a muscle. If you exercise a lot, it gets hypertrophied, or if you're somebody who does training frequently, you see that your muscles are prominent. That's how the brain is. If you exercise some aspects at the expense of others, an MRI or a CT scan or something, you can actually see changes in the brain. So if there's chronic anxiety, you, you can get to a threshold where you are not able to generate enough serotonin to be able to maintain your level of happiness, and that can lead to depression. And there's also a risk of substance use, especially for people who may have discovered that taking some of the substances can actually ameliorate their anxiety, and without, due cognizance to the fact that an initial exposure to these substances can actually lead you into a disorder, a second disorder itself. So people end up abusing alcohol, they abuse other substances just so they are able to maintain their levels of anxiety within normality. There are also some cardiovascular issues, and then you may also have some compromised immune function. Or immunity is your ability to fight infection. So if the anxiety is prolonged for too long, you may have cortisol increase in your system. Cortisol actually suppresses the immune system. Um, yeah, so I think that basically that's the impact that it might be having physically on you, and then psychologically, the depression bits may come haunting you if your anxiety goes untreated. Now, what are some of the coping strategies which have been found to help? Um, Deep breathing exercises, we know it's able to calm the nervous system. So you take in a deep breath, hold it for like up to like 30 seconds or 15 seconds if you can, and then you release it gently. But whilst you are doing that, you need to be able to control your mind and focus on some pleasurable stuff in life, and that actually helps to calm you. We know that the deep breathing exercise actually increases circulation to some parts of the brain, increases oxygen concentration in some parts of the brain for a period, and eventually helps to calm down nerves. And it's also muscle relaxation. I'll talk about this in detail pretty soon. Then there are also visualization techniques. So you need to be able to get your mind to create um, a hypothetical case for you that allows you to stay calm. Okay, so even though you might be in the midst of heated waters, you're able to create some level of calm, by activating your your human powers to be able to do that. And then physical activity also helps a great deal. Again, also improves circulation and then balances out some neurotransmitters in the brain as well as other parts of the body. There's also a talk of having a healthy diet and adequate sleep. Having a good diet, no balanced diet is basically having all the elements of life in good proportion in your meal, because you are what you eat. So certain good foods or balanced diet that you need to be able to have in order to secure good anxiety level to deal with issues of life. And then sleep, I guess we all know that sleep is very important. It's one of the relaxation means there's a lot that science has done about sleep, but I can tell you there's still a lot that we don't know about sleep. So it's actually it's still a mystery to some of us how it occurs, when it occurs, and how it's able to relax the body is still a puzzle to many. So we can take advantage of it as one of God's gifts to relax the body. There's also mindfulness, which is basically having to focus on the present moment. So you, if there's a fan around you, you can listen to the fan, listen to your breathing, just like freezing your brain to appreciate what is around you at here and now. And it is known to be able to reduce anxiety to a very large extent. So the relaxation techniques I've mentioned earlier on will end up promoting your inner peace and create an emotional balance. Sleep hygiene has come up again. We have to make sure you have good quality sleep. It should be registered prominently on the itinerary. You plan for it and you have excellent sleep. If there are any questions about sleep, I'm sure I'll be able to take them after the discussion. It is known that mindfulness itself is able to reduce anxiety by 40% or able to handle stress by 40%. And some of the activities that you're supposed to be doing is make sure you again touch your senses, avoid multitasking in a way that affects your mental health, and then find time to veer away from disruptions and distractions. Now, a well-controlled anxiety leads to enhanced focus and productivity. So it's important for our leaders to know about this, that if you have people who are not being productive, maybe check their anxiety level, talk to them about their anxiety levels. And reaches and feelings, analyze what is going on around you, can dovetail into your ability to measure your own emotions and juxtapose that against others and see how you respond to them. So it's a very important tool in enriching our emotional intelligence. It also improves creativity. If you're able to control your anxiety, you have all the time to be able to create and do stuff. Typical example and all that, it's at that point you just rely on your episodic memory to regurgitate things from a memory. There's no room for thinking and creating. But if you are very relaxed, you can activate other aspects of your cognition where you can think freely and look at the facts that you have and be able to create something innovative from your thoughts. And it also eventually improves our decision-making skills if you're able to regulate anxiety properly. As part of the strategies, it's important for you to notice what your triggers are. Okay, so you should be able to recognize the situations and thoughts that are able to trigger your anxiety. And then you should also be able to know your avoidance patterns, know the things that you need to avoid, and avoidance works in both ways. There are some times that you need to work on avoidance behaviors, and other times that you need to be able to amplify them to get the desired cognitive control that you need. And eventually that also helps in reducing stress. We also learn to build resilience and some of the strategies by positive affirmations. You must know who you are. You must talk back to yourself, reimagine who you are, look at what you have done, you'll be able to do from the onset of life, inception of life till now, and be able to pat yourself on your shoulder, and then be able to limit some of the negative, thoughts. And you should also be able to reconstruct your setbacks and look at them as challenges that offers you opportunities to grow, rather than looking at them as a way of going down the drain in whatever respect you think of your challenges or setbacks. The healing option, if you realize that your anxieties are getting too much or becoming excessive and they are limiting your productivity, you need to seek professional help as early as possible. You need to be open about your mental health to people you trust or to experts in the field. An early intervention, we know that prevents degeneration into what I spoke about, which include the depression, the substance use, and all the other cognitive distortions that may arise from untreated anxiety. If you happen to see a therapist or if you have to see a counselor, one of the things they are going to hammer on is for you to go to identify your irrational thoughts, the way, for example, if you are scared of if you see a snake and you go into a frenzy, yeah, there's a way you formulated or conceptualize the whole thing, and a therapist will help you to look at it in a way that is harmless, and then you're able to handle it subsequently. The exposure therapy techniques, where they might gradually expose you to what your triggers are and help you to deal with them. And then there are some behavioral activation techniques that your therapist might use to help you generate enough energy, psychological energy, to be able to deal with some of your anxieties. Therapists may also encourage you to have frank discussions about your fears with themselves, your colleagues. They may encourage you to build support systems around you, get closer to people who can encourage you. Supposedly because they have been able to deal with their own anxieties. Family and friends are an enormous support of encouragement. So you may want to talk to your friends, you may want to talk to family about what your trusted family members, about what you're facing. Is an important way of dealing with anxiety. It might also help you to write down your thoughts. Even this one without a therapist, you should be able to have a thought journal where you document your thoughts, patterns, your emotions that come with it, and your brain is able to fish out the most appropriate ways of dealing with them as you look at the sequence. And it also gives you data on which a therapist can actually work on. The therapist may also walk you through relaxation techniques, deep breathing, meditation, progressive muscle relaxation. And if they detect that there are use of caffeine and alcohol, they may help you to reduce them, as we know that these may provide temporary relief from anxiety, but in the long run, they actually just exacerbate it. Yeah, so because from studies which have been done, we know that there are some chemical imbalances or neurochemical imbalances. There are medications which can help support individuals who are struggling with anxiety. And the rationale is basically to be able to balance out overactive parts of the brain, like the amygdala, is responsible for your fear reactions and fear responses. So there are some medication that can go and silence it, so that when you see the same thing that is making you edgy and irritable, the reaction doesn't follow subsequently. Yeah, this my special slide, which has got to do with what prayer can do. I'm happy that a Christian organization, we know that prayer can also help in managing anxiety as one gets connected to somebody higher or greater than them, and there is that sense of support that they derive from that relationship. It also provides an outlet for expressing our worries and our fears. And you might remember that I put up a slide about building social supports. One way that can help is interacting with your deity can also help you, express your worries and talk about them. It's a form of what we call catharsis. It allows you to vent out what your worries are, and the venting alone is able to reduce your anxiety levels to an extent, and then also fosters a sense of peace and trust in God, and it also encourages people to be grateful for their blessings. And this one tool that we use in psychology, where we um, move people into positive therapy and allow them to see the good things that is around them. Prayer also does that. The last one is medicine. It's my own coinage, and it supports us focusing on some scriptures that can help us in time of challenges. Like Philippians chapter 4 says that we should not be anxious. So way back in the scriptures, in the early days, they knew that anxiety was an issue. So we are encouraged not to be anxious, but commit everything to God in prayer and thanksgiving. Memorizing these scriptures also helps, so that the height of your anxiety, scripture might pop up in your brain, and that can actually unnerve you to a very large extent. As psychologists and psychiatrists, we always try to amplify or home in on people's religious belief as a way of pulling them out of being in anticipatory fears. So these are my references, and thank you for listening. So, am I audible? Ben, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right.
So, please, I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure is having some network challenges. Or shall I presume and project into what he was going to ask about? Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me at all?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Yeah. So pregnancy in medicine generally, pregnancy is a very huge, risk that could either catalyze a pre-existing medical problem into fruition or into manifestations, so to speak. So whether you have hypertension, background hypertension, background diabetes, pregnancy, because of the stress that it imposes on the body, can actually lead to you manifesting these disorders. And anxiety, if there's a background anxiety or there's a predisposition or there's a genetic predisposition to anxiety, pregnancy becomes like a catalyst that can actually cause its expression So we are very much aware, and especially those who have like background anxiety, if they are on medication, there are things that we do to them. We give them all the support they need, and we are there for them, either before, during, or after pregnancy. Those are high risk period, especially immediately after pregnancy. There's a huge change in the biochemical composition of the body. So one of the things that comes down, we know in pregnancy is serotonin. So because of that, some people may actually have what we call the pregnancy blues, where they might just all of a sudden start feeling sad, start seeing the baby in a different lens altogether as not belonging to them and all that. But by and large, with appropriate support, they're able to come out of that. And again, if they are not able to, we are usually available to support. So I've had to project into your mind to see what you were about to ask. But if I don't address it, please go ahead. Otherwise, I'm open to the next question. Hello, Ben, are you on the call? Or am I on the call? Because I'm sharing my slides, I'm not able to tell.
Please, what?
Okay, all right. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so I guess I've been able to drive my points home pretty well. And unfortunately, IMC is not around, and he didn't designate anyone to handle the moderation whilst he's away. So, and we've done like 50 minutes in all. So let me try and see if I can reach Ben. Yeah, hello.
Hi.
Yes, we lost you.
Yes, there's a problem with my internet connection. I'm unable to come back online. So I think you can proceed with the question and answer session and then wrap up, please. I'm unable to connect. I don't know what happened.
No, you're actually live. I the participant can hear you. I'm done.
They can hear me now.
Yeah, somebody asked a question and the person dropped midway, so I had to project into his mind and then figure out what he was about to ask. So I answered the question, and subsequent to that, there's been no questions. I've had compliments from those who are participating.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So I think you can wrap up. I'm unable to even top up. I thought it was data. I couldn't top up. So
that's fine. That's fine. No, we can hear you. So I'm sure. I don't know whether anybody else here can hear him, but.
Okay. All right. So I'm on loudspeaker.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So sorry. I think I had some challenges with my internet, so I'm offline at the moment. Yes. So do any of us have any more questions to ask from Doc's presentation? Are there any more questions? Questions on the presentation? Questions on mental health? Questions on anxiety? Before I went offline, I saw MFA Kufalo from Mary Stokes online. If you want to make any submissions, MFA, if you can hear me. There's like a free consultation session, if I can say so. Dr. Fiagbe is incredibly busy. And this is what he does. This is his specialty on the field of anxiety, mental health, and emotional wellness. So please let's fully engage Doc and ask any questions we have now, right? But if nobody has any questions, I have a question I'd love to ask if that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. So anxiety, I read a few weeks ago about attachment styles in relationships, and I came across what they call anxious attachment style. Yes, anxious attachment style. So I wanted to find out if this is a mental health condition, anxious attachment style.
Oh, these are not they are not mental health conditions. It's just like predispositions, if I may say. So it's one of the theories of how people kind of bond when they are growing up. We call them attachment theories. So you can have a secure attachment. You can have an unsecure. You can have an avoidant kind of attachment. So it depends on what happens in your growing up. So if you had let's say you lost your mother very early in life and you're unable to build that level of attachment with your mom, and let's say you didn't have a sister to build that kind of relationship with, then when you find somebody at the point where all your relationship is made up, it's difficult for you to open up to people, and if you do open up, how to relate to them might become a problem. And if you marry somebody, some of these things have a way of dovetailing into unstable relationship with married people. So I think that's where the whole concept is. It's not a disorder, but it's like a predisposition or an antecedent factor to why you may not have a very good relationship based on how your upbringing and your challenges at the time of your growing up. Yeah.
Okay. And I love what you said about the fact that a certain amount of anxiety is normal.
Yes.
It's part of our body. A certain level of anxiety is okay, it's normal.
Yeah.
But the problem when it's, if I got you correctly, if it becomes debilitating and it affects your day-to-day activities. So what I would want to ask, based on what I got from your presentation, at what point is it an issue? At what point should the person be concerned Because according to your presentation, it's okay to be anxious about maybe an interview, anxious about, for instance, I was anxious when my connection dropped. Right. At what point should the person be worried? Should the person start thinking of seeking?
Yeah, I mean, and it's a very interesting question, because the point is that the person is already worrying, and it's difficult for them to determine where they are hitting or going beyond their carrying capacity or the threshold, because they're in a worrying condition. So they should be able to pick cues from others. So others should be able to pick cues from the person's productivity, the person handling of issues at home. Those are telltale signs that things may be out of tune for an individual who was previously very alert, going about their day-to-day activities in a very functional manner. So we use a level of functionality for each individual. Some people are able to recognize, I must say, they recognize that their productivity, their output generally in life has dropped, and it's backed by either a traumatic event that they've had maybe in the past 2-3 weeks, or they are unable to handle work that they were used to before, or it's the triggers are kind of staring at them every day. So we actually use your productivity as a way of determining whether your anxiety, has gotten to a threshold that needs some medical or therapeutic support. So that's very crucial. But everybody knows. I mean, there's always that self-awareness that we all have. If you are not, everybody's complaining about you. You're always late. You are not hitting your targets. It's a feedback that you always get, and that's should reflect. You should reflect on it and know that there's some triggers or reasons why you're not achieving that particular goal. So, if you're able to identify it, you can seek for help. But if people point it out to you, and I think that's why some of these fora are important, because it increases people's index of suspicion to whether people are actually productive and what the mental health predispositions might be for their non-productivity and the like.
Okay. I have so many questions. I wouldn't want to take too much of your time. Can I ask one more question?
Oh, go ahead. I just hope that people can hear your question.
Okay. If you can hear me, can you give a thumbs up? I won't be able to see your thumbs up because I'm offline. I think
I can see. Okay, yeah. So Elizabeth has thumbs up.
Oh.
Yeah. Erasmus, they can't hear you.
Oh, okay. All right. So I really want to dominate this conversation. Does anybody have any more questions to ask before I ask my questions? Any questions based on the presentation? Questions on mental health? It doesn't have to be anxiety, right? Related. Can it be on any other topic of mental health, Doc?
Oh, why not?
Okay. All right. So
oh, I lost you.
Incidents that I'm sure some of us have read on the news about a particular celebrity. I wouldn't want to delve into his private issues, but it's a hot button topic now, the issue of depression. You're a specialist in this field. I'd want to know, what are the telltale signs? I'm sure others might also want to know, what are the telltale signs of depression that the person should look out for, and how do you provide support to somebody who, maybe a loved one, a friend, a relative, who's exhibiting signs of depression? So I think there's two questions. What are the telltale signs, and how do you support a person going through depression? Yeah, exhibiting the signs of depression.
Okay, so I think that right from the get-go, I need to distinguish between sadness and depression, because as a professional, it makes sense if I use words in a technical sense. So you feel sad when things don't go the way you expect. It's an emotional response. And again, that is also within normality if the triggers are out. you're able to bounce back and go back to your normal day-to-day activities. But once you mention the word depression to a professional like myself, it means that it's a clinical syndrome. So for us, when we hear the word depression, it means that you've gotten to the threshold where you need some level of support or some level of therapy. So it means that you are feeling excessively sad. Okay, so you're experiencing low mood that is lasting for like 2 weeks and beyond, and you're experiencing most part of the day. Sadness is situational. So if let's say somebody steals your money, um, and the money comes back, you're supposed to get back. So that's sadness. But for depression, even if the money comes back, the emotional lows cannot revert almost immediately. It takes either forever to do that, or it tips you into other forms of thought. So the low mood is pivotal to the definition. You should be experiencing it to that depth. I mean, people have experienced low mood as opposed to just sadness, or people have experienced depression as opposed to sadness. Will tell you plainly that to be depressed is deeper. The depth of feeling sad is really deep and very pervasive. So it's not just a matter of feeling sad. The other thing is that so you are not able to generate enough interest in stuff that used to bring you pleasure, say like watching TV, reading books, um, your hobbies, running your hobbies becomes like a chore. Your energy levels kind of drop, and it's all predicated on the low mood that you're experiencing. And it goes down into your memory. It can affect how you're able to recall information. It affects how you're able to process information. Your decision making becomes slowed up, and it can go as far as affecting your physical states, and it can actually go deeper where your thought gets deranged and you begin to hear stuff. You begin to believe that there's nothing good about you. You feel sad. You feel a sense of dejection, a sense of loneliness. So that's those are the spectrum of symptoms that you experience if you are depressed. And again, if you're having this level of symptoms, you cannot work because there's no energy in you. You and I, when we wake up, we have the drive to go to work. We have the drive, to look for money. But if those things are not present, there's no way you're going to go to work. There's no way you're even going to greet anybody at home. And your domestic functions will also plummet down. So that's the spectrum from symptoms we see when we say somebody is depressed. So that's how it looks like. There's a plethora of symptoms that people manifest when they're depressed. So this one you definitely need some support. At the initial stages, the psychological therapy might help. Basically, what I've worked through this evening can help in terms of behavioral activation. Um, but usually, you may have to do some medication or something to help the person out because you don't want them in that state where they are not eating, they are losing weight, and that will affect their immunity, it will affect their circulatory function, digestive functions, and everything physical about them. So you really have to support people who have clinical depression. Otherwise, most people, when they say they are depressed in the non-technical sense, it just means that you are feeling sad. And that is a normal balance, not a disorder. But for us, if you say you are depressed, it's a serious matter. We need to intervene. And the other thing is, I mean, the other thing is that you may feel suicidal. Yeah. When you are depressed, you actually feel suicidal. So it's the end of the spectrum where you feel that life is not worth living, um, and a whole lot.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. You've been very generous, taking time of your very, very hectic schedule and pouring out and sharing all these insights with us. I personally, I got a lot from it. It was very insightful, and I've taken a lot. I've taken a lot of notes from my personal views, and I hope I speak on behalf of all of us, or most of us, when I say this. Thank you once again. Thank you.
Okay, somebody has his hand up. Erasmus, do you want to ask a question?
Okay.
Yes, please. I want to know and be sure if certain mental health issues like bipolar can be cured, because we see people on the social media and they keep saying they're having relapse. They take them to the rehab and they say they are okay and they come back with another act. So I don't know what the rehab has been doing and then why they keep having the relapse.
Yeah, so the brain works on certain principles. So if somebody has bipolar, the treatment is medication, and to prove that otherwise, the very severe form of mood dysregulation, you need to put the person on medication. But as per the studies which have been done, the medication tend to just regulate the individual's neural system, make sure that once everything settles, if there are no trigger factors, the person can remain very stable for the longest time if they are able to manage their stresses. But if they are not able to manage their stresses and they end up with a lot of trigger factors, they can have what we call a relapse, because for some people, the medication is not able to root out the cause of their disorder. In a few cases, in fact, very, very small percentage of people, they can just have one-off treatment and that's it. They never get a relapse. But for some people, depending on what the trigger factors are, they can actually have multiple relapse, right? So by nature, that's how the condition is. So and if you have bipolar, you don't go to rehab, you go home. They also go to rehab, but those who are using substances. So there are those who may have to go to for rehabilitation. So I think that the question you asked is two-pronged. So bipolar on one side, and the people who are using substances. If you use a substance, you deteriorate. So you definitely have to go into rehab. I have to do a detox for you and a few other things so that you come back in shape to reintegrate in society. But then if you go back to the substance, we have to do another relapse, another rehab. And sometimes people have to do up to 10 times of rehab before it actually sinks that this substance is what is accounting for their unusual behaviors. So I think that's how I can end your question without having to be so technical.
Thank you, doctor.
You're welcome. There's another hand up. I'm struggling to hear you. You're a bit more. Yes, if you can get closer to your microphone.
Okay. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, a lot better.
Please, before Erasmus asked the question, the one statement I heard you say was one genuine sign of depression is one feeling a bit suicidal, like the person may feel committing suicide or something. But then in your previous statement, I heard that the fear of death could also be one of the anxiety, like an example of someone who is suffering from anxiety, whatever. So I'm a bit confused with these two. That one who is afraid of death, how would this person also again be depressed and then feel that yes, I want to kill myself or I would want to die?
So I mentioned anxiety, suicidal as the at the latter end of the spectrum. So you might start feeling low. So this one we are talking about depression. Okay, so you're feeling low, and then at the height of feeling low, you might feel like life is not worth living, and nobody likes you. All those thoughts may just get jumbled up in your mind, and what will be rational to you is to exit this life. So you may start having entertaining those thoughts. So this is depression. And then there's thanatophobia. So thanatophobia is a specific phobia. We call them phobic anxiety disorders. So they are scared of dying. So that's a different disorder altogether. So they are just having thoughts that they may die. When they see obituary, they are scared. When they see the hairs, when they pass through where people are selling coffins, they are always scared about dying. So there are ways of managing these ones. Okay, there are ways of dealing with the thoughts of dying. And I mean, a lot of people have that fear, but they're able to manage it to a very large extent. But again, if because of that thought, you can't get up out of your room, you can't go to work, you can't take care of your children because those thoughts are kind of battering you morning, noon, and night, then that becomes a problem. So that thanatophobia, the fear of dying, can become a problem that will need some form of therapy or some medication to ameliorate. So that's in the track of anxiety. I don't know whether I've been able to explain the two symptoms for you.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. There's another hand up, Ida.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir, please, I want to ask if excessive talking can it be a sign of mental disorder? Like when you give the person 2, 3, 5 hours, the person can talk non-stop and the person is not tired. Can it be a sign of a mental disorder?
Yeah, I mean, there are people who are born like that. They talk a lot and they enjoy talking. It's actually a way of relieving their stress. And if that is the only symptom the person is having, I don't think it tantamount to a disorder. But then what we have to do is to look at the person in totality. If aside the talking, there are other symptoms, then of course we'll aggregate all those symptoms and then um, determine whether it constitutes a diagnostic criteria for a bipolar or for an inclusive, intermittent inclusive disorder. So person is talking a lot. I mean, he enjoys talking, and Bernard Avle is my friend. And each time you talk to him, he say, "Oh, when we were in school, they used to write his name for talkatives. He said his name is already there, but today he's making money out of the excessive talking that he were kind of labeling him for. So for somebody like that, he likes talking. If you give him every day, he will talk and talk and talk. But if you look at other domains of his life, he's very functional. But if we look at your talking and we look at the fact that you talk to the point that you can't even sleep, the whole night you are up talking and you are not talking to anybody, what you are saying is not making sense, and the other symptoms which are accompanying it, then we can aggregate it and say you belong to this category or not. So that's how it's about excessive talking. Isolated excessive talking cannot constitute a disorder. Do you follow?
Thank you very much, sir.
Erasmus again.
Doctor, please, how do you heal from a pain like heartbreak
So there are ways of doing it. So basically, we will take an elaborate history to see how you are processing the whole thing. Okay, so you have to make sure you understand what is going on, repercussions thoughts that you're having, what is actually causing the discomfort that you are experiencing. And then we rationalize it together and work through it and cause you to see the other side. Um, because once your understanding of what is going is up to scratch, it doesn't produce usually that's what we will do. I mean, we'll have sessions with you. Of course, if somebody bounces you, immediately you have that emotional reaction. We'll give you time to mourn and groan and allow the natural process to allow you to heal. But if, let's say, we give you like 6 weeks, you are still reeling from the the bouncing or the response you got from somebody, then of course you need some help. So we'll sit you down and look at your coping strategies, ways by which you're able to process difficult thoughts and all that, and then we'll give you the appropriate way of dealing with it. But most people have had heartbreaks, and naturally, after a while, you're able to get over it. But of course, as I indicated, if you're getting to a threshold where you feel like 6 weeks plus, you're still crumbling under the response you had from somebody, we will profile you and then use the appropriate technique to help you out.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ba. One last question. Please, what's the best way to overcome fear?
Or I mentioned a few. Use a scriptural component. You talk back to yourself that the Bible says you fear not. So if you're a Christian, you can use that. You can pray about it. And the other thing is, in my field, we have to be able to categorize the kind of fear you have and see whether you're able to deal with it within your normal coping skills. If that is not working, then there are a raft of activities that we may ask you to do, look at your thought processes and all that. So on the technical side, but otherwise, so maybe I can throw the question back to you. If you're afraid, what do? You sleep, or you just ignore what is happening? You read a book, if you're a Christian, you pray. If you like watching movie, you can watch that movie so that gets that thought off and allow the extension time to activate so that it gets out of your mind.
All right, Dr. Ba, this particular person I know, he says whenever she has this kind of fear and anxiety, she claps.
So that's the person's coping skill. So I don't debate that. So as I mentioned, it differs from individual to individual. How you handle your fears might be different. But if at the point the clapping is not happening, it's not working for you, you have to look for an alternative coping skills that you already have and use that to overcome the fear.
Yeah, but I think prayer conquers it all.
Yeah. Thank you. Miriam Aivo, your hand is up. I think that will be the last question.
Yes, please. Doctor, please, I wanted to ask if anxiety can actually lead to depression.
Okay, thank you for your question. I think I answered it a bit earlier in the discourse that anxiety that is untreated can lead to depression. So if you have like a panic attack, you're always scared, like, and your coping skills are not able to assuage the symptoms, and your brain will be rewired. You will not have enough serotonin in order to carry out day-to-day activities, and you'll be depressed. And you will need some form of treatment if you get to that point. So anxiety can lead, if it's untreated, if you don't cope with it properly, can lead to depression.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doc. Please, I also want to know if there are people who don't know they have the anxiety disorder.
Yes and no. Sometimes it's difficult to find words to describe how you feel, and you may need an external person to draw your attention that, oh, when you get up to talk, these are the things that we see. You're not able to complete a statement properly. You may need to. Those people, they have the feelings, but they do not have the vocabulary to be able to describe it. For them, anxiety is non-existent, but they know that they are feeling stuff. Okay, and it runs across for all the the mental the mental health spectrum of conditions. A lot of people are having issues, but they actually don't have the knowledge and the know-how to be able to describe them. So for them, those technical words are non-existent to them. But otherwise, once once the thing begins to affect your day-to-day lifestyle, you can't ignore it. So you can't play dead. You will definitely know that there's something out of tune. So it's once you definitely know that your heart is racing. You will know that you're unable to string your thoughts properly into a cognitive process. So yeah,
Okay. Thank you very much, Doc.
you're welcome.
Okay, so I think time is far spent. So thank you so much once again for your time, for the insights, the expertise you shared so helpfully. We're so grateful for you taking time off your schedule to share all these insights with us. So thank you. I think we would have to do a part two. We seriously have to do a part two because we're demystifying a lot of things. I think there's still a lot more that we can discuss on this very same topic of mental health and anxiety.
Yeah. So I'm the president of the Psychiatric Association of Ghana. So we have a team that does advocacy and education. So I could potentially link you up so that when you draw your schedules, if I'm not available, we can have useful resource individuals who can handle. It could either be in person or virtual. So we are always available to answer your questions.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Doc. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, where we conclude this webinar, and it's been a very insightful session with Dr. Delali Fiagbe, who's the head of the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Ghana Medical School, and he is one of the foremost mental health practitioners in Ghana. Thank you to everyone for connecting from all around the world. It's been amazing participants. You should give yourselves a thumbs up. Okay, so the next session of the activities will take place on April 3rd, and speaker will be Dr. Amelia Capo, who is the head of the Department of Psychology at Regent University College of Science and Technology. And the topic you'll be speaking on will be the internet and mental health. Stay on the safe side. That is the internet and mental health. Staying on the safe side. We have other host of resource persons will be speaking on different topics on different dates, which will be complicated. Suicide, awareness and prevention, trauma, managing trauma and coping with trauma, so many other related mental health topics. So thank you once again for connecting. And I would like to say thank you to our technical team as well, who provided support behind the scenes. Enoch, Jemima, Jay, very helpful behind the aspect of this webinar. And I would like to leave us with this quote that I came across a few weeks ago. The quote is, most people know what to do, but very few people do what they know. most people know what to do, but very few people do what they know. So I hope we'll all put into practice all the insights, all the information that we have today, and raise awareness about mental health issues, and help fight the stigma of mental health issues that we find in society. So my name is Benjamin Alabi. I'm the head of Communications Unit at Regent, and it's been a pleasure serving as the moderator for this webinar. So until next time, it's goodbye from myself, from all of us at Regent University College of Science and Technology. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.